Welcome. This is For Better and Worth,
the podcast where we don't believe you have to sacrifice your relationship while you build your net worth.
We are your hosts.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Ericka Young. And we're so glad you joined us today.
All right, y'all, come on. Let's get into it. Hey, people, we are back again.
Yes. Hey. We are here.
So, it's been one of those days. Work was dragging on me today. And look, I'm getting some stuff off my chest today.
Oh, Lord, here we go. I had to ask more than one time, are you sure you want to do this today? Because we record after like 5 o'clock. Like, this is not a daytime thing. And so if work has pulled on him, maybe we need to put it off another day. But he said he ready. So
like, you gonna get it today.
Oh, here we go. So
here at the For Better and Worth podcast, we believe in talking about relationships and money. And we hope that, people have been following us along the way these last weeks if we've been putting down tracks. So, this is a topic that I am certain every single person out there has entertained or struggled with.
Yes. And honestly, there are times when it's a struggle for the youngs too. So we are not immune to what we're about to talk about. So we out there with you. We just have learned some ways on how to work with one another. And we hope that you are able to find some tips in here as well.
So look, I'm going to take you all back and we're going to set the stage for, our topic today. And everybody knows my man out there, Denzel Washington.
He's my fave.
We share the same birthday, so, we're kindred spirits.
I got my own Denzel in the house.
That's what's up. And, we think about his movie where he got his Oscar, Training Day.
Oh, Lord. I did not want to watch that movie. I could not watch my favorite actor play the role of the bad guy, the villain. That was hard for me. It took me years and years before I actually finished Training Day.
I still don't think you've ever watched the whole movie.
Yeah, well, I know what happens, okay?
But we were just talking and we were thinking about how there's a scene in the movie and everyone knows this scene. And Denzel is in the apartment complex and he's telling everybody, I'm the man. I run everything in here. I'm in control.
He said, this is my house and you just live here.
And he said, King Kong ain't got nothing on me.
Well, he ain't say nothing. So,
but, we keep it clean here at For Better and Worth. And so it just really prompted us to start thinking about in relationships and with money, somebody always wants to be in control.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you start thinking about relationships, when people come into relationships and think that someone has to be in control, that really begins right at the forefront, at the beginning. It creates a power struggle.
Yeah. Usually the person who wants to be in control is the one who is forcing the hand of the other. And it's clear who desires to be in that place of power.
And I really think that control is the wrong word when you start talking about relationships, because I'm not trying to control you and I really don't want you trying to control me. And so I think control is the wrong word, and people have to think about relationships in a different context other than somebody has to control and somebody has to be controlled. Now, sure, someone oftentimes needs to take a leadership position, but that's different. Leadership and control, to me, those are synonymous with two different words. So,
yeah. When you think about control, it's more of a dictatorship, right?
Oh, man.
And when you have a leader, when you have a team, sometimes there's a leader, right? Like you might have a coach, you might have the captain of the team, you have somebody who's showing the way, a guide, right? Like there may be somebody who leads and somebody who follows, but we're not talking about it's my way or the highway. That's a completely different story.
Look, I think the only time people like the word control is when you're talking about old school Janet Jackson, like control,
Yes.
control, control, control.
We can get some music going on it, but we not about to have complete control in our finances and our relationship.
So
That's not
so
healthy.
so let's talk about it. Let's talk about our relationship. We're coming up on 25 years this year. And if I think about those last 24 and a half years, I really don't think about like man, I was in control of this thing for 24 years, 24 and a half years, or Erica was in control. I really think about how, relationships are a lot of compromise. It's a lot of, let's talk about it, let's figure it out, because it's not one way of doing things. You have your way of seeing it, I have my way of seeing it. But, what do you think about that? When you enter a relationship, what do you see your role as, in marriage or in a relationship? What would you see that role as even early on?
For me, my role, I fit very well as helper, assist, partner, stand by to the next, next to you. I am not behind. I am not in front. I am shoulder to shoulder. And so if I can make something easier, I'll do that. If something needs to be brought to light, I'm being helpful in that moment. If you're doing something and I can assist, fantastic. Um, that's how I see my role. And there are times when I may lead a conversation or I might bring something up that you hadn't thought of and vice versa. And there are times when you are stern. There are some times, let's just be clear. You are not a control freak. I will never say that. But there are things that are super important to you or you have a certain way that you want it done and you have to control that thing. I don't see that as you controlling me, but I feel like there are some things that you just have a certain way that you want them done.
You know, when you said a couple things that were important, you said partnership.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as you look at relationships, people really do need to think about it as a partnership because there's things that we each bring to the table, and if you're really going into something with the right mindset, you want to be connected with someone who is an equal partner.
Mm-hmm.
Because in a partnership, there are things that one party brings that the other may not have. And then there's things that the other party brings because then you put all that together and you get some synergy and where you're weak, I'm strong, where you're, and vice versa. And that's how you create a responsible, respectable union.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think we all have our way of doing things or seeing things. I look, it's not diagnosed, but I got a little bit of OCD.
Oh, he's gonna admit that on air.
I tell Erica, don't go in my office and leave. Don't leave stuff on my desk. It's like I go away on work trips. I come back. I'm like, you stop putting stuff on my
It's
desk.
just your mail. It actually has your name on it. And I put it where you can see it on your seat.
Yeah, you got hip. You instead of putting it on my desk, you start leaving it on my
Yes.
on my chair, which I was like, okay, I'd rather that. I don't know. It's just something about my desk. It's just like it's my space. Stay out of my space.
And
Leave
you'll
my space
call.
alone.
You'll be in a hotel room in a whole different state. Call and say, "Hey, I want you to go get something off my desk." It's on pile number 2 to the left, just about an inch away from the home computer, and 3 papers down. There's this blue piece of paper on top. I want you to get that and look about 3/4 down on the sheet of paper and give me the passcode. I'll be like, no, he didn't. Like seriously, I don't touch your desk because you have proven to me that you know where everything is on the desk.
Look, I got a filing system that I work with.
It's OCD, baby.
Look,
It's OCD.
don't hate on my filing system.
And just recently, you had this whole way you have to have your files on your computer, and I wasn't fully understanding why it had to be a certain way, but you had to have it a certain way. And I'm like, hey, that's your filing system. Great, have at it. I think, honestly, I'll be very honest and say if you tried to come in and change up my filing system on the budgets or to rearrange some things in that regard, I probably turn some
Yeah.
OCD on too.
I'll be like, girl, this is my computer. Leave my computer alone.
Right. I'm not turning your computer on. You can have that. That's why you got your own, honey.
But I think the important thing is that what I hear in some of that is you compromise and you're willing to adjust to meet me where I'm at in some areas.
Well, and respect your boundaries. I think that that's important. Respecting your boundaries, and that's a good thing for couples to do is to figure out what the boundaries are. What are the things that create some tension or that makes them feel uncomfortable or they don't feel seen or heard. Like, talk about that kind of stuff, especially when it comes to money, because if you don't, somebody's going to step on your toes and you're not going to know what happened. You need to understand and communicate your triggers.
And I think there's things that, just like you, you like things a certain way in some areas. And so I have to adjust, like, okay, well, she wants it this way, or, I don't want to do it that way, but it's a minor thing. So I'm like, I'm willing to just compromise in that area to adjust. And when we talk about relationships, there has to be more of a willingness to do that.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, before we got married, and someone was saying, it was one of our pastors, and they were like, marriage is about giving up your right to be right.
Woo.
Because everybody wants to be right. Everybody wants their point to be heard and, to be put in stone and solidified. But I always try to hear what you have to say and get your perspective because I find value in it. But you don't have to try and beat it, beat your way to you gonna hear me, you gonna listen to what I'm gonna say. And I'm just like, look, because we are partners, because we're in a partnership, I seek your input. I seek what, your point of view is because you're a smart, unique individual, and I value the fact that you do have a point of view and a perspective. And so people, as you think about those relationships that you're either in or you're trying to get into or you're trying to take further, you got to be willing to, hear people out, hear their point of view, hear their perspective, because life is not just one view, one perspective, one thought. And if you get the right person, then you add an asset to yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just like with money conversations. I'm big on, having some of the smaller conversations that lead to a bigger result where it concerns your money. But I think the same goes for relationships. It could be really good to say, have some questions in mind. How do you make decisions? Or if you're single and you're dating and you talking to somebody and you're like, how did if they came through a rough patch, ask them how they did that. What was the process they went through, and trying to understand how they think, right? And how they move and how they maneuver, and if that is complementary to you. And if it's clunky already in your relationship, these might be some really good questions to go back to, because I think the thing that we hold on to is stuff that is close to our heart. And most people find that their income, their bank accounts, and their salary information, their credit report or score, these are things they hold very close to their heart. And so you have to really make sure that you're respecting boundaries and also getting the information you need to know if this is a person that, you can be open, honest, and frank with. And also make sure that they're not going to try and take over and, take you to a place where you're not comfortable being.
Look, we're just talking about the relationship part of it right now. We haven't even started talking about money. Because as soon as you start talking about money, man, that complicates things. But I think an important thing that you brought up is that you have to be willing to ask questions, have conversations, and, pay attention to what those answers are. Because, I think if you get longer along the path and you're not married and people, that sense of desperation starts to kick in and you're like, well, shoot, I got to get married. I just got to get married.
And then you bend on your standards, and that's what we're not trying to do.
Right, because you may need to say, okay, this isn't for me. or maybe I need to just excuse myself from this, take a step back, take a deeper look at it and make sure this is the right place for you. Because what happens is you compromise, you bend on those standards, and then you look back and you're like in a relationship that really isn't profitable or conducive for you. It's making you act out of character or do things that really are contrary to who you want to be.
Yeah.
And it's better to just walk away from it and let God open another door for you than to be there and fundamentally compromise who you are.
And as long as it's not, something that is harmful, abusive, etc. I mean, I think in a marital relationship, the biggest thing I would tell people do, if you're having power struggles and control issues, and these are things that you didn't think about before you actually got married, it might be time for some counseling, right? Like, let's make sure that we get an extra set of ears, so that you can do a better job of communicating. Because the truth is, if you can't communicate just on normal things, household chores, what you're going to do, how you respond to each other, who's going to cook and all that kind of stuff, then money is just going to complicate that whole matter.
Look, I think about one of our favorite shows that we watch together right now, Married at First Sight.
Oh my gosh, you're spilling the beans.
Look, first of all, I think these people crazy because just going into situations blind like that, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if I could do that.
Yeah, I don't know if I could do that, but I look at all the things they go through and trying to get to the finish line and have a relationship that is intact.
Yeah.
And they only have 8 weeks, but you're trying to learn to communicate. You're talking about money. You're talking about sex. You're talking about all these different things. And relationships are really complicated.
Yeah.
And so, one, they take time, and we've been fortunate to have the gift of time on our side to reflect back. And now we can sit here on the podcast and we can share our experiences because experience really does reign supreme. And when you can look back and reflect on those experiences and share those with people, and if they take them and apply them, you can avoid pitfalls. But, sometimes they got to go out and bump their head.
Yeah. On Married at First Sight, they bump their head a lot. And it's quite entertaining. I have been watching for several seasons. And, it's pretty entertaining because when you go in blind and you get married at the altar and have met them for the very first time, you don't know their family. You don't know how they make decisions. You don't know if they're a control freak.
I'm starting to wonder about the experts, like
woo, because the track record is not that great. But the other side of it is that when you're committed, you're gonna really try and figure out how to make it work. If you have some of the fundamentals of attraction and you guys agree on some basics in life, you have similar standards and that kind of thing. I mean, if you have a foundation, you might be able to make that thing work, but you have to really be committed.
Yeah, I think, as we talk about, the relationship part of it and the money part of it, they really go hand in hand because the things you do on one side, you really have to do and apply on the other side. And so you do have to ask those questions and figure out how people maneuver and how people do things, how they make decisions. And then don't just superimpose the way you do it on top of that because it may be very different. Like we already talked about, there's certain things that I really want it done this way. And, as a compromise, you make that compromise. And so I think that's a very important thing, And when we even started talking about, Denzel, he was basically saying, I'm in control. I run things. It's going to be my way or the highway. And we saw what that got him. In the end of the movie, he got shot up.
It did not work in his. He knew he was about to go down, and he was just trying to really exert. And I think that's the other thing is when you have to strong arm people, or you have to say those things like, I'm the man, really. Let's be truthful. That's like the Napoleon complex, right? like if you got to say it, you really not the man. No one believes you. He was saying it and they shot him up. Let's be clear.
Preach, sister. Preach.
So I'm just saying, what I like about our dynamic, although, it's not perfect, but it works for us. I like that we don't get testy if we have to redirect one or the other, and so I feel like you can say, hey, Ericka, I don't think that's right, or you should look at it this way. And I feel the same way that I can say, babe, stop. You know what I mean? Like, come on, hold on. I think you kind of went over the top with that. We can redirect the other without fear of backlash, and we can receive feedback and criticism from one another, and we do it in love. One of the things that we have some no matter what's, and I think one of our no matter what's is that we're not about to raise our voice and argue, right? And so if you need to blow off steam, there's been some times when you have walked out that door. I remember, a long time ago, I've had you walk out the door a couple times. Now that I think about it, I don't know what I have done. That it's been about 3 or 4 times where you've actually walked out the house fuming. But one time in particular, you were like, I've had enough of this. And that was the first time I was like, what does that mean? And he literally walked out the house. We lived in Arizona at the time. We had 2 little kids. And I was like, what is going on? And I remember I listened to Beyonce and I got my head together. And when you came back, I was like, we're going to figure this out. We are going to figure it out.
Look, I don't even remember those times, but
Well, good. That's awesome.
I just, I just kept it moving because the bigger thing, as people listening hear this, the bigger thing is that I was always committed.
Yeah.
I was always committed to, ensuring that whatever we encountered, we would work through. Mm-hmm. Because, I said I'm getting married once, and this is gonna be it.
That's right.
And so whatever comes, we're gonna work through it. No matter what happens, we're gonna figure out how to work it out.
Yeah.
And I think it's that commitment on the front side that has served us well. Mm-hmm. And both of us, have that same commitment to say, look, you might be getting on my nerves today, but I love you.
Right. We say that. We're like, you getting on my nerves today, but it's cool. So yeah, that's true.
And you don't harp on it and don't hold like a week long, grudge and, walk around like, silent treatment. If we have silent treatment, it's like for a couple hours. It's like, all right, come on now. We can't keep going through like this, for the rest of the day. We got to work this out, get past it. Mm-hmm. But I think just, as a building block is, one, have that communication, understand the differences in how you approach things, and understand that it's a partnership.
Yeah.
It's not a dictatorship. It's not one person saying we're going to do A, B, C, D, and not do, E, F, G, but it's a compromise. It's back and forth because it is a partnership. It's what you bring to the table. It's what I bring to the table.
Mm-hmm. So I got a question for you. So one of my strengths is the money. I like the budgeting. I feel like the need to understand the tracking part of it. I want to know how much is being spent in this area and that area. I feel completion when those I's are dotted and those T's are crossed. Have you ever felt like that's controlling?
I don't know if I felt like it was controlling. I feel like you're an analytical person. And so, for those who may not know, you were an engineer by trade before you got into financial coaching. So, numbers was, math and numbers was kind of your thing. And, I'm a business person and I'm about, people and relationships. And I spent a lot of years in sales. So it's all about, building rapport. And it's just a different skill that I exercised a lot. Mm-hmm. I'm a money person, too, because I get into I get into and geek out about, the insurance and, trying to save taxes and trying to maneuver with our accounts. We meet with our our investment professional, and it's like, okay, let's talk about this. Let's talk about the analysis, the long term projections. I get into that.
He got his wealth, his wealthy voice over here. Put the wealthy voice on,
Right.
babe.
Well, I get into all of that stuff again, but I get into that stuff too. But I felt like because that's a strength, I don't have to be strong in an area where you're super strong. So I can lean into that. And so I said, look, if she wants to, that's her, she wants to do that part, I'll lean into it and let you do that part. And like we've talked about before, I'm a visionary and I'm a project manager and, things like that. And I lean heavily into those things around our household because that's not something that you lean into.
Correct.
And if that was your strength and we're both leaning into that, it's like, well, one of us is unnecessary.
Right.
So why not take advantage of what you bring to the table and take advantage of what I bring to the table? Because then we create synergy and then we're winning.
That's good, babe. Because you know what? That is probably why couples struggle so much with who's got the power, who carries the purse strings, who's going to make the final decision. They struggle with that because they don't know their strengths. And that is beautiful the way that you put it because, and frankly, I didn't even know you were going to say that. That was not in our show notes. How about that? But no, that was so good because I really feel like we have to understand one another better to know where you're strong and not step on those toes, highlight them, appreciate them, and then, like you said, lean into what is your strength and where you feel like you do the best work.
Where I see so many people go wrong with money, couples. There's one person who wants to control the money, one person who wants to be in charge of it, and they say they want to be the person. They're the person who likes the numbers and they want to do the budget, but they really are the person who wants to control it. And then the other person feels like they have to come to them and make a proposal.
Right, and ask for money. Honey,
Right.
can I do this?
And we're not even talking about if one makes more money than the other.
Oh, we'll talk about that one later.
Yeah, and then they feel like, well, why do I have to ask you when I make more money? But one person's in control. And then they say, well, I'm going to take control over it. And that's not their strength. And the other person's looking over their shoulder like, well, you're not doing this right.
Right.
You're not doing that right. Mm-hmm. And so that creates a bunch of tension.
Yep.
When you can say, look, you have skills, I have skills. We need to communicate about what our long-term plans are, what our short-term plans are, what the immediate things that have to occur are. You're going to handle the budget, but together we're going to make these decisions about what we do. And when you do that, it puts you in a better situation to, like I said, lean into the strength of that person. And then you're making decisions together, but you're letting that person manage part of it.
What I hear you saying is define the roles. Define the tasks, the money tasks that need to be performed and who's going to do what.
Yes.
And let them do it. And then reevaluate and make sure things are working well. The caveat to this, because that's everything, is define the roles. The one caveat is in a marital relationship, both parties need access to the accounts. Where I see people who fall and just have lots of challenges with money and the power is that somebody is not on appropriate accounts and their hands are tied in doing business. They don't have knowledge of everything that is happening, and they are crippled in that way and can't really be the support or the help or the team member that is required. And so, define roles, the tasks that people are going to do, figure out where you're good and where the other person might need a little help, and that's cool. Let them do what they have said that they would do. And also, I call those places where where all the accounts are so they can have access. I call that a love note. You're telling your spouse, I care enough about you to let you know how to access everything and make sure that we both are on the same page about where the money is. That's huge to me.
Look, because if you don't, then somebody's spending money. Then, packages are showing up and, they sneaking bags and stuff in the
Well,
house.
this is how people go further into credit card debt
Yep.
because they're hiding the fact that, they don't have enough to do what they need to do because somebody else is controlling all of the money. And so that's not what we are all about.
And that's why we talked about money meetings before, because sometimes you just need somebody else to put eyes on it. If it's only one person managing, the money or the finances and there's no checks and balances in place, then, somebody could miss it. When if you have money meetings, you could say, oh, okay, well, what about this? I think we need to adjust that, or, they saw something on the budget. And we could talk about this all day because this is where people get tripped up.
Yeah, it is.
They want to, sometimes when we talking about, well, let me back up. When we talk about defining roles, we're not talking about gender roles because
Right.
people get caught up in gender roles. Like, I'm the man, I'm supposed to do this, or, somebody could think that they're supposed to be the breadwinner. And men typically will have that feeling of needing to be the breadwinner, but there are wives out there that make more money than some husbands.
Right.
And that's okay. In my book, it's okay. I'm like, look, girl, go get that money. Go do your thing. Bring it back home because it's going into the same pot.
Yeah, that's right.
We
we all win. If somebody
right.
make a bunch of money, we all win.
Look,
Come
you're
on.
just making the pot bigger.
That's right.
So go do your thing. And when you define roles, I think it is irrelevant of gender. It's all about who possesses the skill or the passion or the drive to accomplish this particular task.
That's right.
Like, I think it's funny. Like, one of our neighbors in our neighborhood, I see her outside. She's like cutting the grass. Like,
We're not bringing that up. No.
well, I'm not saying that you need to cut the grass because I'm not cutting the grass anymore either.
Yeah, well,
I pay the landscaper.
Right. Praise the Lord, because you did though. I remember that day. You were like, "Look, Ericka, she cutting the grass." I was like, "Good for her," because I'm not about to go push. I have never pushed the lawnmower.
Right. I'm married to princess people.
Listen,
Married
now,
to princess.
okay, you know what? But I will clean a toilet. I will mop the floors.
Right. You do your thing.
I cook 90%. Listen, I do my thing
You do your
around
thing.
here.
And that's why, the whole point, see, you trying to get off track. The whole point is people would think that is a male role. Oh, you supposed to cut the grass or you supposed to take care of the outdoors. When I see her out there, she's like cutting the grass and she enjoys it.
And it looks good.
Right. And so I was like, isn't that something, Because people don't see the ability to assume these non-conventional roles in relationships when they're focusing on who is good at this particular task.
Right.
Or who has a passion for this particular task. And so as you guys are listening, I hope that when you think about your own relationship, ask yourself, which task am I best suited to accomplish and do? And figure out your communication strand and how you need to go about relaying that back and forth. If you're dissatisfied with something, say, hey, can we look at this area because I'm not really, feeling this? Is this something that maybe you could assume? And if you're in a position where neither of you want to do it, maybe you
outsource.
Yeah, get a contract it out to somebody to do that thing. But it's all about finding that medium ground where you guys can compromise, and you can't compromise if you don't communicate.
Yeah. So let's talk about how to make it worth it. Let's talk about that. One thing that I want people to really come back to, you care about this person, you love them, you want what's best for them in particular. You want to see them thrive, you want to see them win, and you want to do that together. And so it is in your best interest to make sure that you operate as a team, that you don't put down the gavel, that you don't put your foot down or lay down the law. That type of behavior is not speaking the language of, I want the best for you. And so when you consider how to make it worth it, always come back to, this is somebody I care about, I want in my life, and I want what's best for them.
Look, I think about, like you always say, think the best. Think the best of the person because you've committed yourself to them. You're in a relationship with them, And I just think you got the fundamental thing, I'm all about you get the foundation right, then everything else you build upon it will be on steadier ground.
Yep.
Just know, how you're going to communicate. And communication to me is not, yelling or, doing the things that derail conversations,
Yeah.
but just figure out how you're going to communicate with one another and think about where your passions lie or where your strengths are, and then lean into those strengths because those strengths will benefit both of you as you manage a household, as you work through your relationships, as you raise children, because people will have different ways of viewing about raising children as you approach careers and how you make decisions around that. All of that is important, and these are all the foundations that we have to work on. So
Yeah.
we hope you all enjoyed that conversation. And, King Kong,
He went down, baby.
yeah, he ultimately fell off the building.
That's
and,
right. And Denzel, he it was his demise.
Right.
So.
And so, make sure you keep pressing that like, follow, and subscribe. We thank you for coming back. And until next time, we're out. Thank you for spending some of your time with us today.
We appreciate all your support. So be sure to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen to this podcast.
You can find us on Instagram at For Better and Worth.
And sign up for our email on forbetterandworth.com.
Till next time, we're out of here.